Hey, friends, welcome to First Church of God. Glad you could join us today. I want to share with you a very important message. When I was growing up, we had some next door neighbors that were loud. And if they worked on their car, they really only had a couple tools. One, a hammer, and number two, some profanities. I learned a lot of words, and I learned that those words that they said are not words that should come out of my mouth. A lot of the words they used, I didn't even know how to spell. I don't know where I learned, but I knew that I needed to never use those words in front of my parents or my family. So, how many of us have ever had their mouth washed out with soap? I've been there, done that, and you know the experience. And I don't recommend that as a punishment for a child, really. Maybe for some situations, but I really don't think it's the right punishment. And I also believe that Dove makes a lot better chocolate than they do soap. At least it tastes better. In our house growing up, and maybe your house, you learned that there were certain words that you didn't use because there were consequences for those words. And so we learned our behavior had consequences, and we learned our words will either make us or they will break us. Also, the words of our mouth can cause other people to have an opinion of us. And it may be good and it may be bad, their opinion of us, but it's also a reflection. I've heard studies say that the level of your education is reflected by words that you use, and profanity is usually a sign that the education isn't as high as somebody else may have. We're not just judged by the company we keep, we're also judged by the words and our actions that we use. And sometimes with some people, something may come out of their mouth and then they say, well, I don't know where that came from. Years ago, I had a neighbor move in down the street from us, and I had been out with one of the kids helping them ride their bike around the block, and noticed this neighbor was outside working on his lawnmower. So I got my child home and I went back down, which is wise that I took them home first, and you'll understand here. Anyway, I go back down there and I say, hey, how's it going? And we start talking, and it seems like every 3 or 4 words, there was a profanity that came out of this man's mouth about his lawnmower. And I asked him if he needed to borrow any tools, and he needed some sockets, but every so often a profanity would come out. And then he asked this question, what do you do for a living? What a vocabulary changer when people find out that you're a pastor and they're talking to you. Really changes things, huh? Now, I brought with me a thing. This is called a coffee maker. It really doesn't make coffee. It brews coffee. And some people call it an automatic coffee maker. No, it's not automatic. There's a lot of work that you have to do to make it work. The automatic part is only about half of what it does. But this machine, it's very important that you follow the steps to get it ready. One of the most important things that this thing needs is this. It's called a coffee filter. And maybe you're not a coffee lover, but I recommend you get these. They make great bowls in the kitchen. And when you're done, you just throw them away. But for this coffee maker, it needs this. If you just put coffee grounds into the basket here, when the coffee gets made, the grounds go into the coffee pot, into this part here. You don't like that. They don't take, coffee grounds do not taste good. It needs to have the filter here to capture the coffee and hold the coffee and let the water go over the coffee, the hot water go over the coffee and bring the aroma and the flavor out of the coffee beans. Sometimes these coffee filters are known to get flipped over, and sometimes the grounds can get beside them and get into the coffee, which is never really what you want. I like my coffee, but I don't like to have it with the grounds in it. It really needs that filter. I remember one time as a kid, I had just gotten home from school and mom wasn't there, but whoa, I was so excited because she had set aside a coffee maker and it just had water in it, hot water. And I thought, I'm gonna make me a cup of tea. So I got my coffee cup and I got my tea bag and put my sugar in it, and I poured the water out of the pitcher and let the tea tea bag steep for a little bit. And when I tasted it, I realized something. My mother had been cleaning the coffee maker, and it was vinegar water instead of hot water. Left a really strange taste in my mouth. But we have to remember what goes into the coffee maker is what's going to come out. A lot of it is about the source that goes in. In life, I think that we're hoping that we're going to develop a filter to filter our words and our actions to make life work. And if we don't have a filter, there are going to be consequences. We learn in life that we need to monitor our behavior. And monitoring our behavior will never be enough because somewhere along the line, something gets into the filter or gets by the filter, or maybe the filter gets a hole in it. If something gets by, we make excuses. We blame our nationality. We claim we speak a foreign language such as French. It's not enough, especially as we mature, to just monitor our behavior. There's something greater that needs to be monitored. In fact, I don't feel that we've really been taught how to monitor this part of our life. We've been so busy monitoring the outcome that we miss this part of life. And what we need to see is that where all of life comes from, where everything flows from, it is not enough just to monitor our words, not enough to monitor our behavior. There's a deeper issue, and Jesus addressed this in the book of Matthew, the 15th chapter, the 18th verse. Jesus says, the things that come out of a person's mouth come from the heart, and these defile them. They come from the heart. So the monitor or the stethoscope to the heart. People say, well, I don't know where that came from. Well, something punched through your heart. Something came through that was in there. What comes out of it is the evidence of what is in your heart. And after you apologize, we say, well, I'll never say that again. I'm going to put a double filter in. But that's not going to be enough. Jesus said that's not going to work. It's a heart issue. And this is what lurks in the darkness, and it goes unmonitored. And what lurks there is eventually going to make its way past the filter and get into our relationships. It's going to affect everything around us because it's an overflow from the heart. And apologize and make excuses. It's a matter of where it came from. We know where it came from. It came from our heart. And if you're married, you're engaged, sometimes what comes out of your spouse is UGLY, and you ain't got no alibi. It's ugly. And you wonder where it came from. Well, it came from their heart. It came from your heart. In marriage, the filter gets thinner and thinner with the ability to monitor, and the ability to monitor gets weaker. And don't think that it's a one-time event in marriage, because it's going to happen again. It's going to happen because Jesus gives us warning, and we say, where did that come from? It came from your heart. So growing up, we learn to monitor our words. We learn to monitor our actions, but we don't learn to monitor our heart. And Jesus says in this passage, the things that come out of a person's mouth come from the heart, and these defile them. And then he goes on, for out of the heart comes evil thoughts, murder, adultery, sexual immorality, and false testimony, slander. They don't come from the brain. They come from the heart. The evil comes from the heart. Murder comes from the heart. Slander comes from the heart. And when there is a murder, detectives, they don't go looking at the list of let's round up the usual suspects. They start looking for people that are connected to this person. They start with family. They start with close friends. They don't go looking for strangers. The guilty party is someone in their heart. Sometimes that something has gotten past the filter of their heart. Jesus mentioned theft. Well, another word for theft would be greed, and then slander. And I want to feel better about me, so don't bring me down. We could say, I need a filter for my mouth, to which Jesus would say, no, you need a filter or a monitor for your heart. And these words coming out of your mouth are not just bad words. They're not just bad manners or a lack of education. They reflect something in your heart. There's been studies done that they ask a number of people, would you do such and such? Would you murder? Would you cheat? Would you steal? Would you do whatever this terrible thing is if you knew you would not be caught and there would be no consequences? And it is heartbreaking to think how many people say yes to, if I knew there would be no consequences, yes, I would do that. Until we learn to monitor and filter our heart, there's going to be permanent damage all around us. The wisest man on earth to ever walk the earth, he asked God for a understanding heart. And God gave him more than just an understanding heart. God gave him wisdom and wealth and so much more. Solomon was his name. He wrote in the book of Proverbs, the 4th chapter, the 23rd verse, he says, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. For everything you do flows from it. But look at that verse. If there's something you catch today, listen, he says, above all else. Doesn't matter about your taxes, doesn't matter about anything else. Above all else, guard your heart. It's important because everything in your life comes from your heart. You lead from your heart. You parent from your heart. You love from your heart. You manage your finances from your heart. Everything comes from the heart. It is the wellspring of life, so we need to guard it. And we need to be careful because what goes into the heart is what's going to come out of the mouth, and you don't want to have to apologize for it. Everything that comes out of you comes from here, so you've got to guard it. And although we're in life, we are taught to be good and do good and to say the right thing. We don't know how to guard and monitor our heart. No one has taught us how to do that. We only know how to monitor our behavior. Well, life tends to put stuff in our heart that doesn't need to be there. But the good news is that the Bible gives us habits of how to clean our heart, how to protect our heart. Others probably know our heart better than we do. So don't wait for someone else to do what we need to do ourselves. When will we take responsibility for our heart? When will we learn to guard our heart? We've got to push back. We need to embrace what the Holy Spirit wants us to do. So guard our heart. So one of the things that the passage talks about is greed. How do we overcome greed? How do we turn the table on that? Well, the opposite of greed is to be generous. So if you want to combat greed in your life, be generous. Give in church, give to some need, find a ministry to give to. You can't take it with you because giving breaks the power of greed in a person's life. If you go to a doctor and the doctor says, well, this is what's wrong with you and you need to exercise, you need to get into a weight loss, you need to take your heart seriously and do all of these things to get yourself in good shape. And you say, well, I can't exercise, I get too tired. I can't diet, I'm too hungry. I can't do all of this if it's going to fix my heart. You see, what we want the fix without any work. And we have this pushback in all of us. If I could just pray a prayer and make the greed go away, if I could just pray a prayer and make the jealousy go away, if I could just pray a prayer and make the anger go away, I can't give you that because something else has to happen. What's in your heart has to change. God can set you free. Jesus came to set us free. And I've met people that are so good about blaming everybody else for where they are in life. And maturity says, I no longer blame anyone else for where I am in life. I take responsibility. And we got to ask ourselves this. We say, well, I'm greedy because of this person. I'm angry because of this person. I'm jealous because of this person. I lust because of this person. And we keep pointing the finger at all these other things. And what we need to realize, it's our own responsibility. And how long are you going to allow your offender to hold you in that trap? What do you need to do to release them? When are you going to go to your calendar and circle the date and say, this is the day I no longer hold this against them. I set them free. And when I set them free, I set me free. Doing the right thing isn't easy. But how long is long enough for you to be in bondage and chained to them? God has given us insight on what to do. It's time to do the right thing. So let's think about this for a minute. How is your heart? Your heart drives everything about you, all of your relationships. Are you mad at someone? Anyone break any promises to you? What's going on in your heart? God wants to give you a new heart, but you must stand guard over what comes in and what comes out. So I hope that maybe for the next few weeks, we can be talking about the heart and about guarding our heart. Is everything okay in your heart? Do you have imaginary conversations going on in your mind? And do things come out of your mouth on occasion that you have to apologize for or you're embarrassed for? Have you secretly celebrated someone else's misfortune in the past few days? Got any secrets that you hope nobody finds out about? Are there questions you hope no one asks you? Have you lied recently to someone else? I believe our prayer would be, Lord, teach me to guard my heart. Create in me a pure heart and a passion to know you. Have a blessed day.